Before we get started, I wanted to see if anyone had any big questions for me or anything about the program, anything about, if anyone had any questions about the program or about anything that you just wanted me to put on like a list for later.
For the assessments, is this like a programming challenge where we're going to know exactly how we did as we're submitting it, or is this like a college test where you are waiting for the interview and turn you to figure out how you did?
The second one. The question was, when you take the assessments, will you know right away whether or not you passed or not? And it is, you'll take it in the morning and then we'll grade in the afternoon, or as best as we can within X amount of days. X being like 2.
On the topic of assessments, I kind of feel like I'm in survival mode and I need to focus on like the most essential stuff and get that down. And so I'm wondering, is there going to be any sense of what's going to be on the assessments?
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what's on the assessments, like okay. The week of.
Okay, thank you.
I can just tell you next week's going to be an algorithm with object orientation. That's about it. Anybody else? Any questions about the program, about programming? Cool. All right, we'll get started over here. So I wanted to take a quick little bit of time just to do a quick overview and review of very basic things that we should have gone through and learned, but just to make sure everyone's on the exact same page and compare the 2 languages and how they differ a little bit. Again, we're learning 2 languages mostly because you will not, I can guarantee you, you will not work in one language for your entire career. It's just not going to happen. You're going to be switching from language to language. I've seen that for myself. I started off in Ruby, then I had to move over to Python and then JavaScript, and then who knows what the future will hold. Maybe there will be some, there will inevitably be a newer and better language or framework in the future. So the ability just to know that, just to have that confidence right early on that it's all the same thing. Like it really just is the same thing. I'm just going to have them side by side. Every single line will be like what it is in one language versus another language. It's really just the same thing. Having that confidence really early on, just to know that you can switch contexts very quickly, will help you out quite a bit. Yep.
Although it is the same because there's just nuances and syntax, so how you might handle code something, or how you have to build out quite a bit more in one language than the other. It seems like there's a difference in paradigms and how you if you want work, say OOP versus functional, procedural, those things seem to be kind of different.
Those are different, but I'm saying that for your first few jobs, like you might not work in JavaScript after this. You might not, most likely will not work in Ruby unless you're in one of our partner companies here. But the switch to Python's easy. The switch to, we've had people move over to C#. We've had people move over to Java like fairly quickly just because they know and then they practice like, oh, this is like syntactically very, very similar. And at the very core of it, I mean, yeah, you can talk about more advanced topics like you were talking about, Sean, but at the very end of the time, like loops are loops, variables are variables. Like the way you declare them and the types of typing that you have are very different, but at the same time, loops are loops, variables are variables, if-else conditions are if-else conditions. All right, so let's just do a quick review. I have to finish by 10:50, so let's do mkdir review. Listing out everything, go inside a review. I'm going to create 2 files side by side. I'm going to call it review.js and review.rb. When I list out everything, I've got those 2 things, those 2 folders up, 2 files up, and I'm going to open it up in Sublime. Today I'm just going to have, I'll have a 3rd window. I'll put this here just in case I need it. I'm going to open up these 2 things, and I want to split my screen so that I don't have to keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Do people know the command now to split the screen into 2 vertically? Option Command 2. And now I have 2 things side by side so I don't have to go back and forth. I can also do Shift Option Command 2 if you like to have them up and down like this. You do 3, 4. I actually don't think there's 4. I think there's a 5 where you can have like a bunch of squares like this. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 if you'd like. I'm just going to do Shift Option Command 2. So the first thing I want to cover are variables. And let's talk about variables. What is a variable? Placeholder. I say my first name is going to be Jonathan, and if I call it over and over again, like, and I set first name equal to Jonathan, I could just use that over and over again. So inside of JavaScript, there's two ways that we declare variables, let and const. I'm going to call this first name. We're going to do, I guess I could change my first name at any time if I wanted to. I could just go down to the courthouse and change it. So I'm going to have that be a let. Let are variable names that can change, like the contents of that variable can change. Const is something, once you declare it, it cannot be changed. Otherwise, it'll blow up on you. So I'm going to say first name is equal to Jonathan. On the right side, I'm going to do the same thing in Ruby. I don't have to have a let or a const in the beginning. Once I set something equal to something else, it becomes a variable. Inside, on the left-hand side, JavaScript, first name is snake cased. Nope, it's camel case. Camel case. I never understood the camel case. So camel case is when the first letter is lowercase and every other new word after that is uppercase. Because I was like, a camel technically has a big head, and then it goes down, and then a hump, and then things like that. So I was wondering, I was like, unless the camel's head is down first, I always thought this should be like first name like this. I never understood that, but it's neither here nor there. This is camel case. Inside of Ruby, it's going to be snake case. Snake case being lowercase everything. All new words have an underscore in between. Very simple. This is a variable. It's a placeholder for something else. Every single time that I call first name here on the left, it will just say, it'll say Jonathan instead. Same thing here on the right. Next, I want to talk about interpolation. What is interpolation? It's a fancy word.
Putting a variable inside of a string using a certain syntax.
It's the act of, so Michael said, it's the act of putting a variable inside of a string with a certain syntax. How do I do that? How do I interpolate, let's say it says sentences, hello, my name is first name, or my first name is blah. How do I do this inside of JavaScript?
You have to use backticks.
Okay, backticks you said? All right, anything else?
You need a
Money sign. Money sign and then curly braces. So this is the way that I interpolate. So I created a variable called first name. And when I print this out, it's just going to say, hello, my first name is first name. This is the way that I interpolate, $ and with the curly braces. Inside of Ruby, pretty similar. Anybody know how to do it?
Pound curly braces.
Pound curly braces. So let me just grab this from the left. I'm just putting it anywhere on this line. Command C, get the whole line, and then paste it here. Hello, it's not going to be backticks anymore.
They're going to be double quotes.
Double quotes. And then I don't need the $, that. You're starting to see, like, these are two different languages, but syntax is not terribly different. Obviously, you're going to have to look up things like, for me, there was a question yesterday, and people were like, I'm Googling everything. Is that normal? I don't know how to do anything in Python without Googling it. I know how to do it in Ruby off the top of my head because that's my first language, and that's the one I've used for 4 years. But I still have to look up how to use a for loop in Python. That's okay. I don't have the brain space or capacity to memorize all of these different things, and that's what Google is there for. Don't worry if you're Googling everything. Everyone Googles everything all the time. Cool. Interpolation, fairly simple. Let's just see this work. So how do I print something in? How do I print something inside of JavaScript? Console.log, and then this thing here. All right. What about how do I print something inside of Ruby? P. P works, puts works, and return also works. So P is, let's take a look at three different things. P, puts, and return. For now, let's just make sure that console log works. So I'm going to run node review.js. Hello, my first name is Jonathan. I'm going to run Ruby. Uh-oh. It says undefined method first name. I have a issue. Let's read this error together. So it says review RB line 3. There's an undefined local variable called first name. All right. So when we see these error messages are here to help us. So what file is it in?
It's in our review.ruby file.
Yep. And specifically on line 3. So it says First name is a local variable that's not defined. Can anyone find what my issue is on line 3 of the review.rb file?
We need the underscore.
Yep, I copied and pasted, and
And we need the lowercase.
yep. Let's see if this works. So P will return everything inside of quotes like this. Puts, on the other hand, will not have the quotes. What's going on?
Oh, we have same issue.
Oh, whoops. Let's get rid of that. So I'm going to highlight first name, and I see it appears twice. Command D. I have multiple cursors now. I can just do one command. I can just replace all of them. So before there were quotations. This one has no quotations. So puts stands for put string. And then finally, I think the return works. Pretty certain. We'll find out if it does not. What's that?
Print.
P and print are the same thing. Sorry, the return is not correct. I was wrong.
Return just is an explicit return.
Yep. Yeah, that was my mistake. Cool. So we have variables, the way that we name them, the way that we print. Let's talk about comments. What are comments? Comments.
Code that doesn't get run.
Yeah, code that doesn't get run. It's just stuff that you write. This won't get executed. And also, so what is the, how do you comment inside of, what's that? Found. This won't get executed.
Command /
Yeah, it's just command /. Let's talk next about if-else logic. So if-else logic is basically, so code reads mostly top to bottom. Let me get my notes out. Code essentially reads top to bottom, meaning that I'm going to start at the very top. I'm going to go line by line by line by line, unless it's like I call a method somewhere else, and then I'll jump down, and then I'll read line by line by line, go back up, line by line by line by line. Yep.
Would you, if you're talking about it as it's written in a file,
Mm-hmm.
do you call that the call stack, or do you not call stack until it's executed?
I don't call it the call stack until it's executed. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about if-else conditions. If-else basically controls, again, computers are really, really stupid things. I'm sure there's like, I mean, there's machine learning and AI and stuff like that, but 99% of the computers that we use are very, very stupid. They execute things extraordinarily quickly. They can go through like calculations and things like that super fast, but it's not very intelligent. You have to tell it every single step what to do. So when you have pseudocode, like I'm going to pick on you guys again, like convert into robot, I was like, man, that's not something that the computer can do. You have to tell it every single step. And part of telling it what to do is a bunch of if-else logic. If-else logic is fairly easy to understand. If you, let's say you're trying to get into a bar. If you're over 21, somebody will let you in. Otherwise, which is else, they won't let you in. How do I write that type of logic inside of here on the left side? So let's say that let age equal 18. I want to write an if-else condition, just basically saying like controlling what my program can do based off of the parameters that I've been given. So the idea is if you, oops, it's not that, it's this. Okay, so if you're over 21, the bouncer says hello, otherwise the bouncer kicks you out. So how do I write this inside of JavaScript? It's not, yep.
Age, or open parentheses.
Open parentheses.
Age.
Yep.
Is greater than
Or equal to.
greater than or equal to 21.
Mm-hmm.
Curly bracket. Say or console.log hello. Then else. Yeah, console.log you got kicked out.
This is just basic if-else logic. If some conditions met, do this. Specifically, if this particular condition is met, execute everything within the curly brackets. Just say console log hello. Otherwise, I'm going to say you are kicked out. You had a question? No? All right. Fairly simple. Let's just see if this works. I'm going to comment all of this out. Actually, no, I'll just keep it. So let's run node review.js, clear the screen. Hello, my first name is Jonathan. That's from the top. And then you are kicked out because, oh, wow, I just realized that's, hello, my name is Jonathan. You are kicked out. Let age equal 18. And since I'm less than 21, I get this thing right over here. Similarly, on the right side, we're going to translate that same thing into Ruby. So I have age equals 18. And who can tell me what to type here?
If age is greater than or equal to 21, usage we don't need to do.
Nope.
Okay. Put or p hello. Else if, which is e, yeah, erase the e, if. Or I'm sorry, just else. Yeah, I'm sorry. P, you are kicked out.
Cool. Very, very similar. Not very different. It's the same logic. It's like I'm going to control what my program does based off of different conditions that are going to be met. If this condition renders out to be true, I'm going to execute this code. Otherwise, I'm going to execute another bit of code. You can kind of see the big differences here. One has a parentheses around it. One has an opening curly brace. This has no parentheses and no curly braces. But essentially, at the very end of the day, they do the same thing. Now, obviously, it's not always just going to be one condition, if else. You might have other conditions that you're looking for. So let's say that's country equal USA. And we're going to have country equal USA here. If your age is 21 and you're in the USA, actually, no, if your age is over 21, you can say hello. That's pretty much all countries. Let's say that you're in, I don't know, name another country with more, I guess, liberal drinking laws.
Germany.
Germany. What is the drinking age in Germany? 18, okay. So let's say that I want to add another condition that basically accounts for if you're, let's just say every other country besides the US is not 21. What would my conditional be? So if you're over 21, then you're always welcome in. If you're not in the US and you're over 18, I think that's most countries actually, you're able to drink. How do I account for that extra one? Tristan?
If you're
So I'm going to pseudocode real quick. If you are over 21, you are welcome. If you are over 18 and not in the USA, you are welcome. Otherwise, go away.
So it would be
You're on the left. I was just moving stuff.
So if age is greater than 21, semicolon, or double ampersand, you are in the USA.
I think it's just like I think in general it's like as long as you're over 20, because I think the U.S. has the strictest drinking laws of countries that allow drinking. Is that right? I'm gonna guess. Let's just say for the sake of that. So that's condition number 1. So we actually already have condition number 1,
right?
And we have condition number 3. But I want to account for this if you're over 18 and you're not in the USA.
I mean, age greater than 18.
Okay, but what do I type before then?
Else if.
Some other condition, curly brackets, that. Okay, what is this condition that goes right over here?
Age over 18, not in the USA.
Okay, how do I type the not in the USA?
so it'd be double ampersand, and then
Country. How do I say is not equal to USA?
oh,
Exclamation.
yeah.
Yep. Console log. You can drink because you are not in the USA and over 18. So let's just see if this works. Let's say I'm in Germany, like we said here. So I expect the output to be, hello, my name is Jonathan, and then you can drink in the USA because you're not in the USA and you're over 18. Let's do some interpolation just for fun. You can drink because you are in $, oops, country and over 18. I'm going to run node review.js. Hello, my first name is Jonathan. It bypasses the first one because I'm not over 21. It met this condition because I'm greater than or over 18 and the country is not the USA. So a console log, you can drink because you're not in the USA, are in Germany, and over 18. Similarly, I want to do the same thing over here. So what was the code that I need to do to match line 16 here? Else if. I think it's just the same thing. I'm just going to copy this over. It's not double here, it's just that. I'm going to copy this, drag it down to the bottom, get rid of the console log, put a P instead. Get rid of the backticks, put double quotes there, get rid of this, and put a hashtag. Very, very similar. All I'm doing is just translating very, very small things. So this is an example of if, else logic. You're just controlling your program to go from in the way that you expect it to go. Yeah.
I mean, and the alternative to this is a switch statement.
Pardon?
So the alternative to this is a switch statement.
Yep. There are switch statements, there are case statements, there are when statements with case statements. They all have their place. I'm personally just a fan of if-else because it's the easiest one to remember. Any questions on if-else logic? Okay. So we're going to continue down the road, and then we need to do things over and over and over again, right? You're a bouncer at a club, and the same kid comes to you every single year and says, "Can I come into the bar now? All my brother's friends are here," or something like that. So let's say we have, let's say let kid age equal 15. Let's say he's 12, right? And let drinking age, oh, my bad. Remember that this is a Camel Case. Drinking age is equal to 21. I want to write a loop. So I don't want to repetitively do the same thing over. When I want to repetitively do the same thing over and over, I'm going to write a loop. So it just says the computer's going to keep doing this and do this and do this and do this until it's done. How do I write a loop inside of JavaScript that basically says until this person is until he's drinking age, don't let him in, and then once he's of drinking age, let him in. A for loop, I could do that. So tell me what to write.
The for, and then it would be.
I'll get you started.
So if,
I'm still listening. Go ahead.
yeah, since you know I have trouble getting out of starting blocks sometimes.
Sure. So a for loop is basically one thing that's I'm going to have a starting condition, an ending condition, and an incrementer or decrementer. I'm just going to keep going over and over again.
This is just bar I. And this would be your. So this would be your starting point. So this would be 0.
Nope.
No, 1.
Nope. Kid age.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kid age.
So this is the starting condition. The kid is 12 years old. So I'm always starting when the kid is currently 12.
Okay.
All right. What's the condition that this is going to be let because we're no longer using bars. Okay.
Condition will be drinking age.
Okay. So the ending point is going to be the drinking age. So what's the condition I write here?
So equals, yeah, I equals 3 times string age. And then, yeah, and then you would increment it by 1, which is I plus plus.
Cool. What would I say? Okay. Do we want to use a for loop here? We can use another loop. We can use a for loop. It's up to you. We could say the same thing. Sean, what do you think?
This is a while.
You use a while loop. Okay. So we could use a for loop. I think the correct way of doing this would just be like console log. You are $, I years old. Come back later. And then finally at the very bottom, you can console log like you are finally 21, and then you can come join us. But this is a loop that I'm saying I'm doing this over and over again. The first time through this would say, you are 12 years old, come back later. You are 13 years old, come back later. Let's see this work. I has already been declared, oops. This is not the double triple equal. I has already been declared. Any idea what's going wrong?
You got a comma in there, it should have semicolon.
Yep. You're 21 years old. Okay, so something is wrong. There's an infinite loop here. It's just running over and over and over again. So this is an example of an infinite loop. It just says, I'm going to keep going until it reaches drinking age, but I'm going to continuously increment after that, but I'm still printing. So Sean and I had an idea for a while loop. So Sean, tell me what to type. Like you're the bouncer. You're going to basically say, while this condition is true.
Is less than drinking age. Okay. And then you can open up your curly braces when you're done with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can write whatever the thing is.
Sure. Console log. You are
so
kid age years old. Come back later. Okay, and then at the very end, let's see what happens.
is there?
That's going.
I mean, are you looking at? I'm sorry, I don't know what the goal of this is.
Oh, I'm just printing out the thing over and over again until the person reaches 21.
Okay, well then you can increment your age if you want.
Okay.
Inside the body.
Sure. I'm glad you guys caught that. I'm going to run this real quick, and hopefully my computer doesn't blow up. But this is what's called an infinite loop.
Sure.
So while the kid age is less than the drinking age, so 12 is less than 21 all the time, correct? So this is going to console log over and over and over again. There's no condition for me to leave. The issue with this is I get something that looks like this. And you can't really see it because it's moving super quickly, but all of this stuff just executed out from my particular program. So this is what's called an infinite loop, and if you keep this running for a long enough time, this will crash your computer. So how do I change the condition so that it doesn't run infinitely?
You have to create a break condition, right?
Break condition, okay.
Or can't you just increment, or inside of there, can't you just say kid age plus equals 1? Or
Can I do that?
Plus, yeah.
Let's find out. Clear the screen. Hello, my first name is Jonathan. 12, 13, 14, all the way until 20. And then at this particular point, the kid's age is 21 is no longer less than 21. It's equal to, but it's no longer less than. So there are loops. There are for loops. There are while loops inside of JavaScript. Inside of Ruby, there's something very similar. There's until, there's while, there's each. It's two ways of thinking about the same thing. So I can just translate this really fast. While kid age is less than drinking age, instead of console, I'm just going to do a P real quick. Get rid of the backticks. Get rid of the $sign. And then kid age plus equal 1. That's it. Translating between Ruby and JavaScript, I just want to make sure it's pretty simple. So there's a while. This basically says while this condition is true. There's another one called until this condition is true. So on line 25, while the kid's age is less than the drinking age, I'm going to execute this. Another way of thinking it is until the kid's age is greater than or equal to the drinking age, I'm going to say this. One of them is going to make sense to you and the other one will not. Like, and people generally move in one direction. I am of the until camp. Like, until this condition is true, like, continue to execute. Other people are like, why would you think like that? It's like because for me, I was like, why would I do this while this is false? Do this, So it's a personal preference, but while and until loops, it's the idea of I'm doing something over and over until a certain condition is met. Any questions so far? All right, we have a few more concepts to cover, and then we'll get started on today's code. So, arrays and hashes. How do I create an array of, let's say, 3 names inside of Ruby, inside of JavaScript?
Let array list equal to,
Okay. So an array is an idea of a collection. It's basically a device that you use to store other things. Think of it as a giant like pillbox, like the ones that your grandparents have. Each individual index has different pills. Like, oh, like my grandmother only takes heart medication on Sundays and Tuesdays. So specifically at Sunday and Tuesday, there's always going to be that particular thing inside of there. And the way we can declare an array is just like with the square brackets. Similarly here, all we have to do is just do array list equals this exact same thing. Now, arrays are very powerful data structures because they keep track of indexes, meaning that whatever is at 0 is like, it's always like whenever you call it over and over again, it's always going to be at the exact same fixed location unless somebody changes something. You can always rely on the data being exactly the same place. How do I access the first, like, there's no shortage of methods inside of either of these, and you can Google for the docs very quickly, but like some simple ones, how do I access the very first thing of the array here? Yep. Do you know how I do that in Ruby? Same thing. What can I? Is there any other way that I can get the first thing inside of JavaScript?
Yes.
How?
Get index. I believe this is the same thing.
Okay. Get index, you pass in the value of it, and then it'll return you the thing that you're looking for. Is there any other way?
Index of.
No, that's the same thing. Yeah.
Array list dot 0?
I don't think it's array list. I think actually this might. I'm not like a professional JavaScript developer. I'm not sure if there's another way. I think this might be it. Another way, but for Ruby, there's multiple ways of doing it. You can do it the way that you can do it there. You can also just do dot first.
You can call it crazy method to get it, but why would you?
Yeah, why would you, right? How do I get the last thing of an array?
Let's array list that way.
Sure. Array list dot length -1. So the length of, remember, because we start counting at 0, the first thing is actually the 0th thing. So in order to access, so this is an array with 3 things inside of it. So the indexes go by 0, 1, 2, because we start counting at 0. So if I did the length, it would be something that doesn't exist over here. So the array list length -1.
And that's just returning how many indexes are in that array. So you would always have to enter the numerical value of that. Because you start at 0, you're subtracting by 1.
Correct.
Okay. Just make sure.
Also another one that's kind of fun, array list -1. Always works. Because for some reason, they know, programmers know that you might want to get the last thing oftentimes. So they just say, if you start at 0, -1 is the last thing, which is that very last one over here. Inside of Ruby, dot last. There's more thinking involved in other languages than there is in Ruby, so don't get lazy. But there are a lot of really nice built-in methods that you can have inside of Ruby that will help you out quite a bit.
I think it's really good to understand that if you want to have the same syntax, like already done for you syntax that Ruby has, you can cache a lot of these ideas into a variable and just call it what you want.
Yeah, you could.
You
Cool.
get my point? Like, I just think people should know that and to make it super simple if they want to see it in a readable way.
Cool. Yeah. I don't disagree. I just kind of use the built-ins. Like whatever's native to the language, I just use it.
For JavaScript, like if you want the last thing, right, you can call that last thing equal array list -1, right? And then you can just always have that, that's
Yeah, but I generally don't declare variables unless I need to. Like if and my general thing for variables, if you are using something 3 or more times, you can declare a variable. Otherwise, you probably don't need to.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how do I push things into an array. So again, I have this giant container. I can put things in the front. I can put things in the back. I can just put extra things inside this container. How do I move things inside of there? I might have said it already.
That push, whole pop.
Yeah, array, that list, that push, and I could put anything else. That push puts it at the very beginning or at the very end?
Very beginning.
And
Very end. Very end. What does .pop do?
I think it takes it all.
it removes and returns it, I believe.
What is it?
Whatever you just popped.
What is just popped?
When you hit array list dot pop,
Yeah.
whatever you put in the parentheses is going to be removed from the list. I believe it also is returned. That's how it works in Python.
Half true. It's the last thing, unless you pass something in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So pop works in JavaScript the same way that it does in Ruby. So when you do .pop without any arguments, it's the last thing. So it returns that and gets rid of it from the original. Not to beat the dead horse. Let's create some methods inside of Ruby and inside of JavaScript. So what's a method?
function.
It's a function. Methods and functions. Ruby methods, JavaScript functions, exact same thing. It's reusable code that you can call that does the same thing over and over and over again. So we'll just say, let's say we're going to create a function called greet people. Create a function called greet people that takes in a name and then says hello.
So it's let greet people, Camel Case, is equal to open parentheses name or person. Okay, yeah. Back arrow.
Hash rocket.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Also dot log. Backticks. Hello. Yep.
Yep.
Probably.
Go ahead.
I wonder if you can console that log on the line because it's not a return, but I think it'll still work.
It's possible. I see one thing wrong with this right here.
You need to use double quotes.
We don't need double quotes. This is JavaScript. It's the first thing. When you declare a method, you're going to put constant at the beginning. Pretty simple. Same thing over here. Instead of, this is the way that we use, this is ES6 way of writing it. There's another one called, that looks like this, greet people. And then same thing over here. The way that we write this inside of Ruby looks like this, def greet people, takes in a parameter, p, this giant thing. So what you'll notice is that the opening curly braces are basically Ruby's equivalent of do and end. So you could have a def greet people, this opening def and this closing end is the opening and curly brace inside of JavaScript. Pretty simple. These will work.
Just a real quick question. So we don't need to use do like at all anymore, or is that
Pretty much no.
Is it, okay.
Yeah. Inside of Ruby, you generally do not need to use do.
Okay.
What's that? There's an implicit do. It's just less typing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is it there
What's that?
Why is it there
I
then?
think it was part of the original. So I hope that this illuminated some like pretty basic things about the differences between languages, and just know that once you understand the pseudocode portion, that's why people, when they're like, let's say you're interviewing for like a, I don't know, Go, like a Golang position, and you're trying to enter as a junior and you don't know Golang, they're just going to more or less test your pseudocoding skills. Can you think through if-else logic? Can you think through loops? Can you declare variables correctly? Can you think through the algorithm? Because once you get to that point, it's just translating into the actual code and syntax. Yeah. So let's take a look at the code, the stuff that we have for today. Let's go into curriculum. Again, today is a pairing optional day, meaning that if you would want to pair with somebody new or with the same person as yesterday and they also want to pair with you, go right ahead. Otherwise, you have 8 challenges for today in 2 different languages. 4 challenges in 2 different languages, 8 challenges total. So you have anagrams, anagrams 2, character count, and palindromes. These are all fairly standard interview questions that they'll give you right off the bat for a junior level interview, or they might ask you at a whiteboard. And again, we'll talk more about whiteboarding in 2 weeks. If there are no other questions, we can get started. Okay, let's get started then.